In today's gospel, we hear the apostles saying to the Lord, increase our faith. Increase our faith. I'll say it one more time. Increase our faith. If I'm to ask you, each of you this morning, if you are satisfied with the level of your faith, what would be your answer? Are you okay with the faith you have? Or do we humbly recognize that, like the apostles, our prayer lives and our faith lives are a constant work in progress? In other words, we never really reach there. We never really get to where we should be. Because the more we explore the dimensions of our own lives, the more we honestly look at ourselves and how we relate with people, and therefore by extension relate with God, we will come to the honest conclusion that my faith needs to increase. My prayer life needs to improve. My own spirituality as a disciple still has a long way to go. The beauty of that is, if we, like the apostles, come to the Lord in prayer and say, Lord, my faith is not where it should be. Increase my faith. God hears and God will respond. What then are we to do with the gift of faith? How does faith empower us, enable us, excite us to live as citizens of the kingdom of God? 3 P's to guide our reflection. The first P, power. Power. Faith is that door that opens to the room of unlimited power. Because in that room dwells our God. And God, as we know, is all powerful. How am I going to do this? You can't do it on your own. How will I address this issue? Your strength will not be enough. How do I deal with the pressures of life? You're going to crumble if you keep looking at yourself. But faith says, Lord, I am facing what I'm asked by you to face, but I'm not facing it on my own strength. I am facing it with your power in my life. And when God is for us, who can be against us? When God's power rests on each of us, no weapon formed against us will prosper. And that weapon could be people's intentions, people's words, people's actions, or just the various changes, the various vicissitudes of life. Some days up, some days down. Some days I'm healthy, some days I'm not so well. Some days I'm feeling confident, some days I'm feeling fearful. But in all of those day-to-day experiences, faith says, I will show up. I will step out of my room that's allowing me to focus only on myself and doubting. But when I trust in the power of God, when I exercise the gift of faith that God gives me, I open that door. And all power from on high comes upon me. And when God pours his power upon me, there is nothing or no one that I can't face with confidence, knowing that with God in charge, every little thing is going to be all right. It doesn't mean we won't face the issues. You and I have heard people say, and perhaps we have said it too, why me, Lord? No, that's not the question to ask. The question to ask is, Lord, where is your power so that I can face what I have to face? When Jesus knew that he had to face the cross, meaning when he was facing Jerusalem, knowing that he will be betrayed even by the very disciple that he fed and taught and loved, he knew that he could not rely on his own power. At one point in the garden, Daddy, I can't face this. Daddy, why do I have to go through this? Daddy, if it be your will, take away this cross. But then he surrendered himself in prayer. He remembered that Daddy was right there. And because he could claim the power of Daddy in his life, he could then say, okay, Daddy, not my will, but yours be done. When we claim the power of God, there is nothing we can't handle and face and eventually overcome. My grace is sufficient for you. We hear this all the time, but do we actually claim it? Do we say with the disciples, my faith is weak, Lord, so help me. Pour your power on me so that in faith I can step out. I can show up and do what you are asking. Because with you, by my side, all things can be accomplished. If we have faith the size of a mustard seed, we say to any mountain in our lives, move from me. Or we say in Jamaica, go away. And the Lord said it will happen. Not by my power, but by God's power. What is a mountain blocking your faith this morning, if you can identify one or several? What can you honestly place before the Lord and say, these are the things that are barriers for me exercising faith? And in the presence of the living God in his house, say to that mountain, those hills, those barriers that prevent you from growing stronger in your faith lives, get away. God will answer our prayer, but we have to ask for it. We have to believe that we receive it, and then we have to exercise it. Faith does no good if it's only kept within. Faith has to be expressed in action. It has to be evident in our daily lives. In fact, when we live lives of faith without saying a word to anyone, we become sources of inspiration for others. And when we become sources of inspiration, the kingdom of God is furthered. And that's what we're called to be. A people who not only pray for faith, a people who not only receive faith, but a people who live the faith so well that we become inspiration for others. And we can do this because I do not depend on my own power. My power comes from God on high, who is always with me. The second reality of faith. Since faith reminds me that I do not step out on my own or my own power, but the power of God in my life, then it means that no matter how heavy the cross, no matter how hard the task, no matter how strong the hurricane in my life, in my family's life, wherever I find myself, faith allows me to persevere. Don't quit. Don't give up. Move on. Because the Lord your God is fighting your battles for you, for all of us. So faith allows us to take that next step and the next step to move forward. Sometimes to Calvary, sometimes to the celebration of a wedding or a birthday. But faith says, keep on keeping on, persevere. Because faith says everything, once I commend myself, is going to not only be all right, but I can keep on moving and keep on growing. How do we grow? Or to flip the coin, what stunts our faith lives? Two realities. The first, objective. The second, subjective. The objective. I love music and movies. I enjoy listening to good music, and I truly love watching movies. Here's the truth about both of them. They not only make us feel good and sometimes transport us to another world, if we're not careful, the anti-values in some songs and the anti-values, sometimes anti-Christian or anti-religious values in these movies, even though we say it's just a song, it's just a movie, the more we open ourselves to them without discernment, the more we'll find ourselves slowly being pulled from a life of faith centered in God to a life of fellowship with the world. There is beauty in music, and yes, there's beauty in the creative works, the dramatic arts, and making movies. But we don't just swallow everything wholehearted. As we chew on the music and as we taste the movies and the plays, we must think what is of God and what is not. What values are being indicated by the word that guides our lives? And what's the venom of the devil that slowly seeps into our bloodstream and into our spiritual lives? We all have to be careful, because without knowing, when we open ourselves to these distractions, our faith lives can get eroded. And they get eroded because they easily and slowly pull us away from what is most important, which is God Himself. So am I telling you to stop listening to music? No. Am I telling you to stop watching movies? No. But be discerning as an objective reality to our lives of faith. The subjective is not different from that. We're always going to have different people in our lives. Hearts and minds given to God in faith will speak words that are enlightening, that are life-giving, and rooted in love. But hearts and minds rooted in darkness, lack of faith, lack of a connection with God. They may sit in church, doesn't mean that they're connected with God. These words that come from those lips only give death and destruction and despair. And so as we journey in our faith lives, we must ponder to which voices we give our ears so that our faith lives may be built. I recently had to tell the deacon, not every voice that comes to your ears you need to repeat, because some of those voices are not necessarily close to God. Some of those voices are still too ingrained in darkness and they can't see it. Every single one of us must seek the light of Christ in faith so that we can step out of the dark into His marvelous light and become what He is for us. A source of life, a source of joy, a source of peace, a source of contentment. This is how we know how to discern. Which voice builds my faith and brings me closer to God? And which are the voices that is only causing division, disharmony, and creating barriers? Barriers to each other, barriers to people. We have to love everyone. We're commanded to love each individual. But when it comes to building faith, we have to discern which voice or voices are helping me and which are not. We will only persevere when we mix with those who are growing in faith. So what about the rest, Father? Pray for them. That's what faith tells us. Pray for those who still have a long way to go despite going to church all their lives. Remember what I always tell you? There's a difference between someone who sits in church and someone who has a real faith relationship with God. By their fruits, they are known. Which then leads us to the final reality of faith. Faith says that this world is a gift from God. Faith says I use my gifts and the gifts that God has in this world to advance the world and make it a better place. But at the end of the day, we're going to all have to say goodbye. When we say goodbye to a loved one, it's never easy. Goodbye to mommy, goodbye to daddy, goodbye to family, goodbye to friend. Never easy. But faith says, God who called home this person has called the person, if the person lived a good faith life, has called the person to a better place. That's what keeps us going. When we are sad as we will be, when we grieve the loss of a loved one as we should, and the stronger the connection and the deeper the bond, the more the tears. So we mourn, we are saddened. But faith says this individual who we saw had a real deep faith connection with his or her God, he or she is in a better place. And so we can carry on. But not only do we carry on, because this person we believe by faith is in a better place through the merits of Jesus Christ, we believe that we too will be taken up to where Jesus and our loved ones have gone. This is how we face the reality of death. We do not live in fear of death. And allow me to interject. Beloved, for the love of God, when I tell you to put your funeral program in place and put your will in place and decide where you want to be either buried or inurned, I am not saying you're going to die. And I am not telling you to play in your fear of death. A people who truly believe that Jesus is the resurrection and the life, you have no reason to fear. You only have to exercise faith. What did Jesus say? Where I am, you also will be. So we in this life believe in faith that Christ is with each of us. But when we die, Jesus is still there. Because he is the resurrection and the life. So when we die, he who was with us in this moment, in this present time on earth, will be with us for eternity in the place he has gone to prepare. As he said to the thief on the cross, you will be with me in paradise. Paradise. Faith tells us that one day, when we are called home, we too will inherit that place that Jesus has prepared for all of us. But it starts in the here and the now. It starts with being and revealing that we are a people of faith. It starts with inspiring each other to live faith lives. It starts with motivating each other to recognize that there is another power beyond just my mind and my thoughts and my own strength. It is God himself. He who created me, all of us in his image and likeness, calls us to walk with him, to claim his power, and to have faith in him. Do not leave this morning without praying that prayer. Increase my faith, Lord. Sometimes it's too shallow. Sometimes it's very absent. But Lord, you are faithful when I am not. So increase my faith and help me to walk